Welcome to Nothing Without Us, stories and discussions about meaningful inclusion. We will talk about accessibility, true inclusion, and disability justice with stories, policy updates, discussions, and commentary on the value of being accessible and inclusive. We believe life should be accessible for everyone, and everyone should be included in all aspects of life. I am your host, Annette Bourbonniere. I am a 70-ish-year-old woman with short gray hair and pink eyeglasses. I'm sitting in a power wheelchair, and my service dog Kirby could show himself at some point during the podcast. This podcast will be captioned. Please press the subscribe button at any time during the podcast if you have not already done so. It will not cost you anything, but it will help make this podcast grow. You're also welcome to make comments in the chat and to give us feedback about what you do or do not like. We especially appreciate a thumbs up. Today we will be talking about people with disabilities helping people with disabilities. And our guests today are Andrea Rodriguez and Aimee Fernandez, who run a training program at Looking Upwards for personal care assistants, or PCAs as they are more commonly known. Hi, Andrea and Aimee. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
As you may know, Looking Upwards is one of my favorite organizations, primarily because of their overall philosophy of giving people agency in making their choices in their life. And I think that's a really important thing. So Andrea, let's start with you. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us how long you've been at Looking Upwards?
Absolutely. My name is Andrea Rodriguez. I am the Director of Employment and Transition Services for the agency. I am a young 40-something-year-old with dark brown, shoulder-length hair. I've been working with Looking Upwards for about almost 27 years. I was brought into this field by my family members who have worked with people who have disabilities since as long as I could recall. My uncle, he was born with a disability, and growing up, I would support him with his daily needs, and I think I was born into it. I think that's the best way to describe how I'm here and why I'm here.
That happens.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. Aimee, can you introduce yourself as well?
Sure. My name is Aimee Fernandez, and I've actually just been with Looking Upwards since April of 2023, so just a year. And Andrea actually hired me and brought me on to actually begin this PCA training program. So that's what brought me here. I do have 25 years of human service experience and was working in the PCA program in Massachusetts for 7 years prior to starting here.
So before this particular program, the one we're discussing, Andrea, you were already working on trainings and job development and job placements with your consumers. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Can you tell us?
Yes, Looking Upwards has a range of job developers from 4 to 6 at any given moment who works with individuals across the state of Rhode Island with their employment journey. It could be helping people discovering their wants and needs when it comes to employment, or it could be just jumping in and helping people during the interview process and the application process and making sure that people are happy with the work that they do. In this role, I provide training to not only a team of job developers, but also a job coach team and a community-based support staff team as well. We do a lot of community exploration with individuals who are uncertain as to what their future holds in means of employment. That's pretty much what we do.
And Aimee, you were doing this in Massachusetts, were you not?
Yes, I was doing the skills training part, but on the side of the employer. So training the employer on how to find a PCA and how to bill and pay the PCA.
Okay. So you weren't really training
the individuals to provide the PCA service.
Yeah.
That's what the difference is.
Yeah.
I was on the employer side, now I'm on the PCA side.
Well, that's a pretty full picture then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So I believe you're running your, 4th cohort at this time. So How did you come to coming to this specific program? How did you develop it?
Yeah, so at Looking Upwards, we're always looking at new avenues of assisting people with becoming independent, finding the services that they need, and finding their ideal career paths. One of our other community members, someone we worked with in the past, had presented this idea to us. This is an individual who has a physical disability themselves. They came to us and said, how come you guys never call me and say, do you need somebody to work with you? There's a shortage of PCAs across the state, and it hadn't been an industry that we really explored for the folks that we support. So it definitely was an eye-opener, and it got the ball moving.
And how's it working? What are the good points? What are the barriers or challenges you run into in the program?
So the program, we are, like you said, entering the 4th cohort. It is working. It's working extremely well, I feel, and as evident by the people that are employed. So the goal is to have a individual complete the PCA training program and then link them with an individual in the community who could use their PCA service and help them in an internship and then hopeful job placement after. So I think as the cohorts progress, I think we see an easier avenue of connection of finding the individuals who need the PCA support and also finding students who want to learn on how to become a PCA. So our last cohort that began in January of this year, we had 6 that completed the training program and 4 are already employed, and that was as of last month. So 4 out of the 6 individuals are working as a PCA. So
that's great. That's great. That's a pretty good employment rate, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're getting better and better.
Yeah.
It's also really exciting because it's not for some of the folks we support. It's an entry-level position after they've received the training, but it's also at an elevated pay rate that they're not familiar with seeing. A lot of the folks that we provide service to have historically been hired into minimum wage positions, and in the role of PCA, their wage is a little bit higher than the minimum wage rate, which is a really exciting opportunity for the people we support.
Well, I think it should be. I think it's my concerns about pay have to do with policies that enforce poverty, and I'm really always concerned about that. So let's hope that we can legislatively keep that pay competitive this time. So, Thank you for listening to Nothing Without Us, stories and discussions of meaningful inclusion. This interview with Andrea and Aimee was too long to fit in one episode, but too important to edit. The second segment of this interview is captured in part 2.